Hello and welcome to another one of these Instagram lives that I've been trying to do every month. Often talking to Ukrainian teachers of English about Russia's ongoing war against Ukraine and the way it's affecting them and affecting their teaching and their lives and relationships. Obviously, this is a strange time to be doing this because probably like many of you, I went to bed last night with the news of Iran's massive missile attack on Israel ongoing and wasn't sure what I would wake up to this morning. And we still wait to see how that will develop. I guess what's interesting for me is that what Israel was subjected to yesterday is what Ukraine has been subjected to day in, day out for 2.5 years now. And Iran's obviously been learning from watching the way that Russia has used Iranian drones and North Korean missiles to sort of degrade and erode Ukraine's air defense system in order to launch continual terror attacks on Ukrainian soil. So, yeah, that's the kind of context to today's talk. I'm hoping Kate Kozalova's with me today, so let me just check who that is there. Yeah. Let's just wait a minute and see what happens. I know sometimes the internet connection can be a bit erratic. Where's she gone? I'm not sure what's going on there. Hey, Kate. Try again. Not sure what happened there. Give me a minute. I can see you. I can see it says accept. I press accept and nothing happens. That's strange. Let me see if I can just do it a different way by maybe inviting you. 1 second. It says remove from live video, so you should be here. Not sure what's going on there. Go live. Kate's unable to join. That's strange. Which means you have to listen to me rabbit on for a couple of minutes. When you're ready, Kate, just try and join again and let me know you're there. So hopefully Kate will be able to join. She's based in Kyiv at the moment, Ukraine's capital, but is originally from Kerch in Crimea, occupied Crimea. I'm guessing for many people outside of Ukraine, Kerch will only be a place that people know about because of the name of the bridge that the Russians built after the illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014. It's often referred to in the Western media as the Kerch Bridge. And, sooner or later will have to be taken down in order to basically prevent Russia from using the Kerch Bridge across the straits to mainland Russia as a way of bringing military hardware and weapons and things onto occupied Crimea from where it launches attacks against Ukraine. Let me try Kate again and see what's going on. I'm going to try a go live with Kate again. Let's see what happens. Gives me a chance to drink my tea. Aha. Hey.
Oh, hey.
Hello.
I'm finally here.
Yeah, how are you?
Good. As good as it can be.
Yeah, sorry, I realise it's always a weird question.
No, it's fine. It's better to hear such questions than not to. So, can you hear me? See me well? Everything's fine.
All good. Perfect. I think I hear you. And how's it been here the last few days?
More or less, I would say. It's been rather quiet, and well, you never know what to expect. So I think I'm among those people who is always prepared, who is never disregarding the notifications. We always try to go somewhere safe when there is like a red system, like going alarm. And actually, the place where I do live, there are several, again, notification systems, so you can hear them around. They wake you up at night. I know that it's not the same for each area of Kyiv, so some people just, I don't know, don't hear it as loud. For me, it does work. They wake me up earlier than notifications. So yeah, so I can say this weekend I got a few hours of decent sleep, which is weird to talk about, to be honest.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'm
that's worth
reading
it.
an article over the weekend about the way in which sleep deprivation has long-term impacts and the way it's impacting Ukrainians. And, I know that sleep deprivation is often used as a kind of weapon of torture among people who, prisoners of war or whatever. I
Yeah.
know they used it illegally in Guantanamo. And so I'm sure it's part of the plan is to kind of
Well,
ensure that people don't sleep well.
I'm pretty sure that is because, well, me being, well, I constantly them. I'm very extroverted, I'm an introvert to be honest. So, and if I don't get, well, my 6 hours of sleep, ideally, I do understand that I become aggressive, and my nearest and dearest suffer because of that. Well, again, because mostly the communication is online and these days, and you're trying to be careful and polite with your colleagues, with your students. However, when you're around your family, well, that can lead to certain like house quarrels, and yeah, we understand that it's also one of the ways to get people apart, get them like fighting over nothing. Sometimes you're wired up most of the time,
I mean,
which is
I remember
terrible.
from when my daughter was very young and she was sleeping badly, and I had kind of 2 years of terrible sleep, and I was a wreck of a human being for a couple of
So
years.
you get this, yes. It's like having a child, yeah. But yeah, and, speaking of Ukrainians being brave to bring kids into this world, I see my colleagues and just people I do know uh, having babies, and there is I can't say I don't know much about a baby boom, but it still is. It's still people having babies, and I keep thinking, wow, well, they are super brave because I can't imagine myself right now. I don't have kids at this point of life, but a couple of months ago, I had like a surgery, and it's. I would say it was difficult to walk for some time, and sure, you have to heal. And the furthest I could go was to just like this corridor part at my apartment, look at this safest place in my house, which is like further from the windows. And it was really difficult, to even lower myself. Well, let alone to, I don't know, sleep or I don't know. And I understood, wow, well, people have literally they have babies, they have to like take care of them, and I can't even take care of myself, honestly. And yeah, it's just the spirit of people who keep on working, who keep on living, donating, living their lives every day just amazes me and inspires me because, well, like any human being, I mean, I have my good days, my bad days, and sometimes you just want to just say, you know, I give up. I can't anymore. But then I understand, well, who am I to judge? I'm just here, and Kyiv is, well, relatively safe at this point. And yeah, just then keep on going, keep on teaching.
You think always
So
respond to the air raid sirens?
yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
I know
yeah.
people I know have basically almost got kind of fatalistic or blasé about it, and
Yeah,
if it's my time, I need to stay in bed. I'm not going down to the basement.
exactly. Yeah.
Because always follows it.
I do follow, but again, I mean, I do respond, and the fact is that we live at the top floor, and that is the potentially like dangerous area. So at least we like move to the corridor or like do something, because again, it's impossible to not react because the sirens are so loud. And you're quite right, people that take this fatalistic approach, but I do understand them. Getting this several hours of sleep sometimes is just more of a priority, let me just say. And yeah, we moved on. It's just like a safe place. I don't know, for us here, and we understand. Oh, we'll just at least we'll move to the corridor. We have the like I don't know. Just like it's a mattress. We have it all like figured out, and I have a few students who also moved to either bathroom or again to corridor in state, like instead of going to a designated like safe place like a metro station. It depends, because if you have only like 5-6 minutes, it's better to stay inside rather than outside. So it's everybody's choice. Somebody takes a car to a metro because it's faster and safer. Again, depends on the area where you are of Kyiv, and well, sure, if like you're closer to suburbs, the chances that the like vagrants might destroy part of your apartment building, that it is rather high. So everybody takes their own choice, and I respect that. We're still at this point that we do react. We at least try to move on, because we're understand. Well, I don't want to wake up kind of screaming because fragments of well, I don't know, of glass fractured something in me. So yeah, it's crazy. Like I understand that right now I'm talking about like the way I sleep, and it's terrible. It's really not what I would like to be talking about in my 30s. But if you're okay with it, I would like, move on to the topic of my family, since I've moved, because part of my family still lives in Crimea, and they're still in Kerch. And well, first it was because, well, my grandma at the time, she was too, I would say, too old to move, and my mom stayed there to look after, and my grandma passed away 2 years ago. And well, my mom stayed, and you know, these years over there, they took their toll, to be honest, and it's very difficult. They never really understand what's going on. They don't know how to talk to us about it. And the main message is like, oh, but what can we do? Yeah, like the small people. And this is what irks me, this phrase, like the small people that we can.
So many Russians.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's say, well, but like, what can we do? It's just not us, and we're living our lives, and well, yeah, but at the same time, I don't know, they just don't understand what's the point that this, I would say, I don't know, where it's okay to say something and where it's not okay to say something. For instance, well, 2 years ago, at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, my mom would send me a message that, well, if I may say so, I know this Instagram live that doesn't ban me, but she would send me a message saying that, well, when a missile flies, it knows where it's going, and it shocked me. Well, yes, it does know where it's going, but so like with the message, if you don't try through lives, it only targets like this military objects. We do know it doesn't really target the military objects. Like it's been 2 years. I know where it's going. So yeah, but the message is still the same, and they don't get it that we live in the content, like in the constant stress of it. Yes, and that we have for I can't say like luckily, but like I personally don't have anybody who's like very close to me who I've lost to this full-scale invasion, for instance. But I do know people who have lost their like, families, their fathers, their brothers, their husbands. Those are my colleagues. Those are my students, my friends, like work friends as well. So
Something that
yeah, please go on.
sorry, I saw something recently that said 77% of Ukrainians have now lost someone they know.
Absolutely, yeah. So through somebody, that's true. Absolutely, and they just they just don't get it, so that you can't really feel safe and any time. Like, I don't really feel safe all the time, right? So I can't really feel safe when I know people who have lost their family. I know people who are right now at the front line, or at least through somebody else. I know, yeah, those people. So how can I be like happy and cheerful every time when I know that no, actually, it's not over. It's still going on, and it's not really looking very optimistic, to be honest. It's really difficult, and everybody who's watching, donate. I wanted to remind everybody so that yes, you don't need to refuse your cup of coffee. No, do go and enjoy it. You deserve it as well. But let's not forget, yeah, so that's all these beautiful ladies, wonderful men that are fighting for the few hours of sleep that we get every night. They need your assistance. They need your help. I'm pretty sure that at this point, there's everybody, like, again, everybody knows somebody who you can trust, and if you don't trust some fund or anybody, you still can donate to a smaller, I don't know, I would say charity project. It's not even charity now, right? So, but still, like, to a smaller person. Yes, it's not, it shouldn't be like a blogger with 1 million followers. It could be somebody you know, your colleague, or again, your friend of a friend. So yeah, we could go with that.
So, can I ask you a bit more about your growing up,
Sure,
Kate, if you don't?
sure.
So
Shoot.
you
Yes, sure.
grew up in Kerch in Crimea.
Yeah.
What was a Russian-speaking family that you grew up in?
Yes, grew up in a Russian-speaking family, and I would say my whole town would speak Russian, and it was even a bit weird that somebody would speak Ukrainian. It was a whole Russian-speaking community, and yeah, we had Ukrainian television, Ukrainian, let's say, like news resources at some point. But yeah, the whole community, everybody around me, the schools, they all had Russians, but we had just like Ukrainian lessons. Yeah, the lessons of Ukrainian. I hear stories that there would be even some schools that had to write, I don't know, appeal to cancel Ukrainian language, and luckily in my school it never happened, at least. But I would say in my school, I had more classes of English than classes of Ukrainian. So
Yeah.
I only started like speaking Ukrainian when I moved to Kyiv, like step by step. And firstly, for me, it was the language of like official language, a work language, a communication outside the family. And sure, with full scale invasion, it became a part of my personal life as well. But yeah, I grew up speaking Russian for more than 30 years, I would say.
And when you were growing up, did you have a
Mm.
sense of yourself as Crimean, or as Ukrainian, or as Russian, or what?
This is a good question, because I don't think I even thought about it at the time. I didn't consider myself as a part, or as like the propaganda has it right now, as a part of big like Russian empire, or a part of a poor Ukraine, as it would say. Yeah, I'm air quoting, because this is what now some people that I know say. So I just I think I did think of myself as like a person who lives in Ukraine. So
Mm.
at that time, it didn't really matter what language you spoke. And well, I did mention that it was a bit weird that somebody would speak Ukrainian, but not that somebody would bully them. To be honest, I hear lots of stories here in Kyiv that people, when they came here, that yes, that they came to study or they came here looking for a job, they were even ridiculed for speaking Ukrainian at some point.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know, I didn't have that. It's just maybe because we didn't have anybody who would speak insistently like Ukrainian, so we didn't have such a case. But yeah, I thought of myself just probably a Crimean. Um, but if you ask me if I knew lots of Crimean, like lots about Crimean history
Yeah.
at that time,
Ask
again,
about.
not much. I knew lots of myths and stories, but it's always so kind of mixed into whole global
I
history, and
didn't
yeah,
know
I would say.
kind of the mass deportation of the Tatars,
Mm,
forties, like that.
I would say it was mentioned at some point, but never really focused on. And as much as it pains me, I would say in my community it was always mentioned. Yeah. So when I'm speaking my community, it's like meaning that people around me. Yeah. So it's cool. And I had like also I studied there. The university that I attended was at the time located in Ukraine as well, in Crimea as well. So yeah, it was mentioned, but I think we thought about it as something that happens a very long time ago. Nobody really considered it. However, now we understand, yeah, but that did take place. And now that my friends and I are talking about the history of Crimea, we understand how many cities now have different
Yeah,
names, how many cities have longer history than just Russian Empire, and they have a connection not only just to Russia, right? So there are cities that were founded by the Greek, and
yeah,
nobody's speaking about the fact that well Greeks had the colonies over there, and that we need to give Crimea back to the Greeks, right? Or that we need to share it with Turkey.
yeah,
For some reason, everybody forgets about it. But what I wanted to focus on is that speaking about the places, that how it worked. Yeah, so if you rename a place, it loses its authenticity, right? It loses its history. So I'm, if I may so, yeah. So I'm super excited about the fact that in Kyiv, yeah. So people saying, yeah, well, it's like we are on the fence about it, but lots of streets are getting like renamed in Kyiv, and I'm actually a big supporter of that.
yeah, yeah,
I vote. I like that they ask the public about it. There is like this voting who you would like to give your voice to. Yes, so what's the name that you think should be given to this street? And I think it's a lovely thing because now we understand. Well, actually, well, right now I'm living in Kyiv, so I understand. Yeah, Kyiv does have history further than just Soviet Union,
yeah.
right? It's not just this well heroes of Second World War and further, and the members of Communist Party.
I,
No, it's a very old city. Yeah,
I
sorry.
think so an important part of the kind of decolonization of the space. I mean, we have a similar thing going on around here where in the UK itself and in England itself, which was obviously a kind of colonial country, we were the colonizers. We're now starting to push for statues of slave traders to be taken down. Just up the road from me, a road my son walks up every day, used to be called Black Boy Lane. And it's recently been renamed as Danny LaRose Lane. And Danny LaRose was a black British anti-racist campaigner. And
Mm.
they've kind of renamed the street after a local anti-racist campaigner. And I think things like that are really important because, one, people stop and go, who was Danny LaRose? And then there's a whole history about the changing of the street names and why you change it, and the awareness
Mm.
you come to of why it's a problem to have the names that have been kind of imposed through a certain kind of colonial mindset. And I know that's happening all over Ukraine at the moment, that kind of
Indeed, yeah,
like
it is indeed.
de-Russify the space, yeah?
Exactly. I know that again, there are people who are not big fans of it because again, it's connected with money, investments, whether it's the time and the place to do so. I do think it's the time and the place to do so because when else
Yeah,
are you going to talk about your history, the history of your country? And yeah, I also wanted to just stop me because it can get very emotional whenever needed. But yes, it's important, and if we talk about English as well as English language, I mean, It's curious because the school I was attending had this advanced program of English teaching and learning as well. And at some point, I think I knew more about the history of the United States and then the history of English language because well, my major, yes, is English language. I studied it at university, and I knew about this language more than I know about Ukrainian, for
Yeah.
example. And at some points of my life, I would name 50 states, not now, but I would name 50 states, but I don't think I would manage the like regions of Ukraine, which like they are twice less. So, and when you ask me like who did I like consider myself to be, I didn't really think. I was always fascinated with the culture in general, like outside. I loved the classics, and I actually wanted to show that I went through the whole Pride and Prejudice book, like it just finished. So, which means it is a dedication because of the language which is used there. But with well, again, with the full-scale invasion, you start like to think, and like you start digging into history more. And you've mentioned, yeah, so like getting rid of certain beliefs that you've always had in your head and just never double checked. They never went through fact checking these ideas that were implanted when I was younger. So
So,
yeah, that
well,
is.
when did you leave Crimea?
I left Crimea a year before it was annexed in 2013, and I left it. And actually, that was a very weird period of my life because, well, first of all, the distance is rather long, and the first year it was annexed, people would even make fun of my husband or of me here, saying, "Oh,
So from
why don't you?"
Crimea?
Yeah, for being in Crimea and saying, "Oh, we're just like you're separatists." Hey, this is a funny thing to say. I hope they regret it now. But you know, the most painful thing is that at this point of life, I know that well, it's a very long way to get there at this point. And it doesn't guarantee me the fact that I'm not stopped somewhere and charged with ridiculous things and just sent, I don't know, elsewhere. So I do not really know when I see my family, and that's the worst thing of all, even though we don't have the warmest communication at this point. Um, Also, again, since 2014, it was more and more difficult to get there. And well, it's a whole, I don't know, roller coaster of experience getting there. And mind you, even if I show all the documents that like I'm from there, my family lives there, it doesn't really guarantee you smooth transition, I would say. And yeah, so the brightest moments from like crossing, I really don't want to say the border, but this checkpoint, let's call it this way, is that it's the worst experience ever. It's like you get in, I don't know, I've never been to jail, but it seems like it. You are checked, you are double checked, and you are treated like, I don't know, I don't even treat animals like this. Mm, and I remember a man right before me in line, and he turns to me at one point. Yes, it was the last time that I visited Crimea, and he turns to me and he said, like, "Never in my life have I ever been like treated like this. In all over, I've been all over the world, and it's the worst experience ever because like you're." Let's imagine that this is my passport and it will be open, checked, double checked with the magnifying glass. It's like this, whether, I don't know, it's like a secret place. At the same point, I understand, well, it was a military base then. I think this, they've been turning it into. But, you know, and at the last time, like I tried to get there, they were adamant about the fact they didn't have Russian passport. And I said, well, I don't live there. And this is why actually, and it made me so angry. You cut half of the territory and now you are like demanding that I have it. So yeah, well, it just makes me super angry. But yeah, it was terrible, and it was getting worse and worse like every year. More and more difficult to get there. Again, this whole atmosphere over there is just, again, like you're getting in and out of prison or whatever. Really, really terrible.
Oh, it's one of the ways that the occupation obviously works, which is once you've occupied somewhere, you basically make it very, very difficult for people not to have us. And
Exactly.
like Mariupol and those kind of areas, that if you want to access any kind of services, you basically need to take Russian citizenship.
Exactly. And may I just add here, I'm not sure if that's a real thing, but it seems like it, that they have ads in Mariupol that's, well, have this urge, yeah, the call for people to change even their surnames, to
Yeah,
change their last names so that they sound
kind
like
of
more like Russian.
by the Ukrainian surnames.
Exactly. And at some point, I had a very brief experience in my life. So my last name is Kovalova, which and Erva is this Russian kind of suffix in the surname, but the word Koval, which is Smith, right, if you know, so which actually, this is why I'm the real kid Smith. That's the the story behind the handle. So anyway, this word Koval is actually Ukrainian, which makes lots of sense now. They understand, but that's like a Ukrainian surname originally, which was Russified, what's the word? So, and I understand, well, it's been going on for many years, for decades, centuries even, right? And I understand that it happens to some, like in some history of my family, and I understand, so it's been going on. Nothing is new under the sun,
Yeah.
So.
And so you moved to Kyiv from Kerch.
Yeah.
You arrived in Kyiv kind of just at the same time that the Maidan was starting to happen, and through a kind of fairly turbulent time. Yeah.
It was, and let me say, it was extremely difficult. I moved. I didn't have any job offers, but luckily I found one in just a few weeks. And well, when you just move to a different country, I do understand people who moved to other countries, yes, and even like migration within one country, within Ukraine, it is difficult, especially when you do it. Well, I did it. I moved. I think I was 27 at the time, so it was the time when you don't have any uni friends, you don't have any college friends, you don't have anybody, and it's terrible because you don't even know where to go and cut your hair. You don't know anything at all, and everything is new. I've been to Kyiv several times, well, before I moved, and it's nothing like starting your life here. And in a year, right? So we have Maidan, we have like the revolution, and I understand at that time I'm barely scraping, like I'm barely making ends meet. It's my first year here. I'm trying to get some job done, and it was such a weird experience because my office was, I think, 2 metro stations away from Maidan, and over there people was just like walking, having coffee, sharing it, and it was a turbulent time, as you said. It was I don't know, you understand that something is happening, something huge is happening, but shame on me, really. At the time, it was not my priority. My priority was like just to secure some jobs, to get some money.
Yeah.
So now that I'm feeling more, I would say, financially secure, repeating this word once again, I do go to meetings to remind people of the prisoners of war, and I understand, well, at least I'm well, I can't say I'm reviewing my path, but yeah, I'm trying to be more socially active and so on. So yeah, it was.
I mean, I kind of feel similar in a way, in that I don't think, I mean, I was in Kyiv around that time a couple of times, and I had friends who I knew had been on the Maidan, and I don't think I fully understood what was occurring at that point when Crimea was annexed. I don't think I fully ended it, and I was still going to Russia right up until 2021. And it took me a long time to kind of really understand what was happening, I think. And I know a lot of Ukrainians I've spoken to as well. And I mean, to be fair, some Russians I also know didn't understand what was going on until it was often people from Crimea or people from Donbass who moved and who had that kind of advance warning or advanced mentality, and who kind of hostility or opposition in, because people would go, "Oh, you're one of the separatists, are you?" And
Exactly. Yeah.
misunderstanding even within Ukraine, as far as I can see, of
Exactly.
why it was happening. And I think it probably took the full-scale invasion to kind of shake everybody to kind of wakefulness.
You're quite right. And to be honest, coming back to this history, right, of well, I again of all these years, right, before the full-scale invasion, as we say. And I understand, yeah, it wouldn't bother me that I understood that, well, Crimea is now further away. It's, well, very difficult to get in there. And the thing that I wanted to say, that I would spend there maybe a week, 10 days, right, of my vacation time. But my mom would have TV on the background usually. And me spending there like 7 days, right, or 10 days, well, I understand that it affected me as well, this whole news agenda. And it was on the background.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So you would be afraid to come back to Ukraine. So there were news that people were, I don't know, snatched out of the streets, sent somewhere. And it sent such a dangerous message. And I even spoke to a friend of mine who still, actually, she still lives in Crimea, and she said, well, I would go and get my friends, right, to go to, for example, Kherson, right, to get a foreign passport because they needed to go in places, and they were afraid to just even go over there, to go to Kherson, let alone like Lviv or any other Ukrainian city. So they were afraid to leave.
Crucified or something.
Exactly. They were scared out of their wits to go somewhere to, I don't know, being again snatched. They were afraid of being snatched by like angry Ukrainians who would send them somewhere. Which, sure, we know that that's not really how it went. It's the whole way around. But yeah, people were told consistently. I understand that even if I spend like 10 days watching, like, not even watching, I want to say, it was just on the background. I was not watching it on purpose. So my mom would cook, write something, and she would have this news on the background. And after 7 days of watching this news, I understand, well, I personally had fear of going back, and I knew that it was not as bad, it was not as scary as the news portrayed. So I kind of understand what happens after 10 years of listening to this information, and why certain people would say things that they're saying, about Ukraine. And because again, they are in their own world. It's all kind of Iron Curtain again. No,
I heard it
difficult.
talking about, the genocide of Russian speakers. And it was like, even with my own shit Russian, I've sat in bars in Odessa or Kiev speaking back Russian and chatting to people and kind of everyone we would speak both languages quite happily, quite freely. And the idea that there was somehow this kind of persecution of people in what at that point, I mean, Odessa at that point was still very much a kind of Russian speaking city. And, Kharkiv was a very Russian speaking city. Mariupol was a very Russian speaking city. And for what good it did the people living there, because it didn't stop Russia killing them there.
No, exactly. So nobody was spared. like
Yeah.
to fade. And there is a nice I don't know if you know about it, but there is a nice channel in like Ukrainian though, and they have a series of interviews with people who are originally from this occupied territories, and they're saying that yeah, those who assisted at the beginning of this war in 2014, 2015, not surprisingly, even right now, they have all been like they all disappeared. They've been killed, or I don't know if you can say this online, but anyway. So now that they served their purpose,
Yeah.
like
They're kind of disposable.
yeah, exactly. And but then I just do understand people that there are like people like this who wanted to be useful, and there are just regular people who keep on living their lives. They've saved, like, been, I don't know, they had been saving to buy, I don't know, apartment for 20 years, so they don't want to leave, and they
Yeah.
just deal with whatever it is right now, and they just don't have any strength or any, I don't know, desire to fight back, because they understand that it's been, well, they've been lied to. Maybe they don't understand that they've been lied to, just because it's difficult and very painful to realize, you know, just to understand that everything that you wanted to happen never really happened.
Yeah.
And I also know that, well, Crimea has been lucky because a lot of investment goes there. And not every city has been so lucky, because it's not on an advertisement banner, you know, like, see where we're going. So yeah, it's been quite a ride, I would say.
I think it's very difficult for anyone to accept or admit that they've been lied to. And I mean, we see it here with Brexit, where, you know, it's pretty obvious that people were lied to now, and people still find it very difficult to accept that and to admit that they were wrong, because it means admitting you were gullible and you were weak and that you were stupid, and that the people who manipulated you, that you trusted, were actually bad faith actors. And I know it from some Russians I've talked to, where eventually, you know, I try and have dialogue with people, and sometimes you get to a point where people say, yes, I actually understand and admit that all of this has happened, but what am I supposed to do with this knowledge, because it's awful? And it's like, well, at least just know it, you know, just know it. Let's just start by just knowing it.
Let's just start here.
Yeah.
Right, and then you
And,
can,
you know, that's the first stage that you, and it's the same. I mean, as an English person, the more I understood about English history, the more you kind of go, Jesus, you know, we've done some blood things to people.
it's been
Look harshly at that and understand that in order to make sure you don't go back to those places again.
well,
It's very important to have that kind of reckoning with your own self and your own history and your own, you know.
story. You're quite right. Actually, I've been reading something, I think, and they've been using this term like about white colonialism, and like lots of people talk about like color, people of color colonialism, but lots of people forget about like white colonialism, which happened in Europe, and understand, well, this is exactly what happened, because, well, it's difficult to prove that you have history if everything that you've had has been systematically eradicated. The poets, poet society, the writers were killed, or they were sent somewhere and then not heard of ever again. And it's been done again and again and again and again. And then it's easy to say, yeah, but what is Ukraine? It doesn't have any art, it doesn't have any artists, it doesn't have any history. Sure, because somebody made sure that it doesn't indeed. And there was a great phrase, I think, that during Soviet Union, when a scientist or somebody did something outstanding, they were called Russian, and when they did something bad, they were called Ukrainian. So now we're getting back the fame.
A lot of black British footballers say very similar kinds of things, which is, You know, when you succeed and England win, then you're
You're
English.
English.
When you fail and the team loses, you're suddenly like some black bastard who shouldn't be playing for the England team. And you know,
Sorry, so what happened?
those kinds of ideas that you know, you can only be one of us if you're successful.
Exactly. That's the truth. But may I
But
then talk about success? Speaking of like being successful, I think this is a very painful thing for Ukrainians right now because they've been, well, I don't know, told their whole life that to be successful you have to be perfect. And just getting back a little bit to the teaching topic here, I've seen so many times people who were not even able to open their mouths throughout the whole lesson. And when I approached them and asked, like, why don't you say anything? Well, at least a phrase, like try. And they say, I'm afraid of making a mistake. And that would kill me because I understood how difficult it was for him to just function in a society. They had to be perfect. They had to make all the right, I don't know, connections, moves. But it's also like a reflection. And well, may I just mention that I'm running, I'm in charge of this project that teaches people okay, let me rephrase it. So we are creating the courses that people can buy and do them online. They are, well, teacher-less sort of, so it's for extra ideas, for extra understanding, and so on. And it's just an online course that you can buy and go through at any time, actually primarily for the reason that, oh, if I don't have time to learn English with a tutor, or I'm just too tired at work, you can buy it online now. There are lots of projects like this. And we did a pronunciation marathon a few months back, and we're actually finishing one today. And the feedback for me was really, can I say weird?
Yeah.
Because we understand that our clients are Ukrainians who right now who are living abroad at this point, and they need to communicate and so on. So our purpose was to show the most difficult points and like maybe show the contrast sometimes, and generally teach people some pronunciation, because that's the topic which is usually omitted everywhere at school, at well, even like language schools, right, universities sometimes. So it was just like an extra resource for people to see what to do, how to say certain things. And the two comments stuck with me because we had like a feedback survey afterwards. The first one was, if this course doesn't have a London dialect, I can't consider it a well thought course. And I was,
because everyone
deeply
in the world speaks English with London accents.
and we never said anywhere that we would go like a London accent. And the second thing is, I understand that that's how people believe it. Yeah, so okay, oh, if it is a pronunciation course, it has to have all the possible variations, like including probably Canadian, Australian, and I don't know, just don't want to offend any other countries. But I mean, even within the United Kingdom, there are so many ways
Even with
to pronounce.
like you go out for a day and talk to people, and you hear all kinds of different accents.
Exactly.
You know, from where I live, there's a lot of the local kids who speak Turkish as a first language, and often they have quite a specific kind of way of talking English, and you just get used to things because you hear them.
Exactly. And if you're working with people who like generally from India, you'll get used to this pronunciation, their accent eventually. Sure.
And
it doesn't really matter.
I would say it took me at least 20 years as a teacher to understand comprehensibility is a two-way street. I always used to talk about you want your students to be comprehensible, and I never really used to think about what that meant until one day I kind of realized, actually, what's comprehensible to one person might not be comprehensible to another person, simply because they're just to that accent, you know.
They're not
And
exposed exactly to this accent.
what is comprehensibility? I mean, it's not only to do with the speaker; it's also to do with the listener.
Exactly. Absolutely. So from it just this comment just stuck with me, and I understood. Wow, well, like what's the demand of it?
Yeah,
I've never seen a comment under again under a well-known resource who would hire, I don't know, a Harvard professor and saying, you know what, I didn't quite understand the logic of this presentation. Can you return my money to me? No, I've never seen that, because that's Harvard or Cambridge and this big name. And if you are a Ukrainian brand, then you are asked to do everything. You have to be the best of everything. And see where I'm going? So people demand it of themselves, and they demand it of everybody else. They just don't forgive the mistakes. And unfortunately, this happens with Ukrainian language as well. They demand people who are
yeah,
coming again from different regions who primarily spoke Russian. And yes, it was a systematic process. And they say, but you haven't fought well enough, and now you don't speak that good of a Ukrainian. Chill. People, chill, give them time. Like with any language, Ukrainian, English, French, whatever language you're learning, give yourself some time and give yourself some credit. Nobody's expecting you to be perfect all the time. I'm actually very thankful again for people who are now understanding that they need their own pace, as you said, about being comprehensible, right?
yeah.
Is that again, if you expose yourself to certain accent, at some point I was mad about Scottish pronunciation, like Scottish one, and people were telling me, are you
Yeah,
insane?
in like Edinburgh rather than Aberdeen or Glasgow, though. Yeah, you mean that kind of like soft kind of
Yeah, I would say just I
rather
can't
harsh
pinpoint.
stuff.
um as I was saying, sorry, I can't say like pinpoint exactly, yes, like the place, but probably like Northern England, and then like Scottish sort of pronunciation. So the one that James McAvoy would have,
Yeah,
something like this.
yeah.
And yeah, I was amazed, and I would listen to his interviews, and I would understand more and more of it, and I understand, yeah, that I now getting more profound with it. And now I'm watching this Netflix series which is called Dairy Girls, and it has a whole
No,
different
I
view. Exactly. So if you just want to broaden your horizons in terms of accents, just, I don't know, expose yourself. And it's not necessarily
series.
the place that you have to go. You can just watch lots of things right now. Lots of online things are
And
available.
so, how long have you been teaching now, Kate? If you
Oof,
don't,
I would say I've been teaching groups, yeah, let's say like adults, since 2015.
oh,
Before that, I would tutor kids with their like schoolwork, homework, and I can't say that I was teaching, because now I understand that's not exactly teaching. I was just assisting them with some homework. But yeah, full scale teaching, and it was quite a journey. When I graduated, I spent 4 years working for a company that would serve like as a mediator between like the ports in Kerch and the ship owners. So we would arrange like
okay,
this whole process, and then I moved to Kyiv, and I worked. It was all together: office manager, PR manager, translator, interpreter, all in one. And I burned out 2 years after, and I decided to upgrade my English knowledge by attending business English courses, yeah, like business English language school. And then they told me that if I ever needed a job, they would be happy to hire me. And this is how my journey started. So it was very, I was scared, I would say, because at that point I never worked with adults, I never worked with groups. And well, yeah, it's been 9 years now, I would say. So it's been a happy journey.
pop into the kitchen for 1 second. One
Yeah.
sec.
Yeah.
Beeping. Give me a sec. I'll be back.
No problem. Right. So, if anybody's, if you guys have any questions, you can text them while we're waiting for you. So, yeah, no questions at this point. Let me see through if there's anybody. Right. Nah. Okay. So, so speaking of teaching experience, right? I would say it's been a happy time, and it still is my calling. I would say I really love it, and I would say, oh, how I do. So, coming back, yeah, to this experience, I was just like saying maybe people had some questions.
There, yeah.
So the thing is, when I worked for this company, like it was my first job in Kyiv, 2 years, and now I think I've been been in therapy for 4 years because it traumatized me so bad. But anyway, I at one point I would work for an English school, and I would work as this office manager slash translator slash interpreter, blah, blah, blah. And I understood that I get more feedback as a teacher, as an English teacher, and I would see the results of my work not immediately, but in people who really wanted to, I don't know, to get a better job or job offers at least. And yeah, and I quit after 3 months of just I don't know, working 2 jobs at the same time. But I never regret it. I love what I'm doing. I see again, for this reason specifically, I see that we're helping people get better, again, positions in life. And just, I love the language as well. I'm a big fan of English, of doing everything in English. I'm trying to read as much as I can because at one point I understood, well, if I do know English, why do I keep reading books in translation? Why do I keep watching series, TV serial, films as translation? And
You hit
I
that point.
just
Yeah.
see, I hit the point and I said, well, I have to try and switch back. And it was
Yourself that
physically,
place.
yeah, it was physically painful. Physically painful, I would say. And but I do understand what our students are going through as well. So they have to, I just, you know, get rid of this assistance of I don't know, of the translation, and try to watch as much as possible baby steps, 15 minutes, I don't know, situation comedies, yeah, sitcoms, or 20 minutes of TV series, and then move on to 1 hour, and it gets like easier and easier. So yeah, I would say I hit the point in my life when I listened, oh, what a feedback I'm getting. This is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And yeah, and this saved me over this first days of invasion as well, I would say.
Have you seen the market change? I mean, like the kinds of needs that people have for English, or the people who are learning English, or the levels of, has that changed since you started teaching?
I would say it varies. It depends year to year. Half a year there will be an influx of starters, people who just have bare minimum, and another year will have more of an intermediate kind of level. Just again, it varies, depends. But I think there are still more and more people. The pick was at the beginning of again, full-scale invasion, because people understood that, well, they do need the language. And I think it's not only English; it depends on the country you went to. I also teach Spanish, and the demand for Spanish language has been, again, I think, on the rise as well, because lots of people move to Spain. Not only just English, right? And yeah, I just depends year after year. I can't say that we still have the same that we had last year, for instance.
Has the full-scale invasion impacted your teaching or your work in any way? I mean, what kind of changes have you experienced, or how has it infected you? And
Well, oh, can you finish the
yeah,
question? I didn't hear the beginning, the
well,
end.
how has it affected them? How has it affected you?
Well, as bad as it might sound, but the COVID prepared us for online teaching, yes, and I
Oh,
understand we've
thank
had
God.
some,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's prepared us to work online. It gave us some tools. For instance, what changed, you asked, right? So, for instance, I would have students who refused to work online during the I would say the lockdown, and they really wanted the offline communication, and then only when it went really serious, we had to stop. We had to cancel our lessons. And with the full-scale invasion, several students texted me and said, I think we should recommence our lessons. We should get back. So they understood that there is no way out. They still need the language, and we need to keep on working. The second thing is that we had to come up with this point when if we have any air raid sirens as well, you just have to speak through with this person what happens, what's their algorithm.
Yeah.
Do they leave the house? Do they stay at home? So they have to understand that you have certain rules and they have certain rules, which is now an extra point that you have to discuss. What else? Also, I don't think I ever asked these people, but now I try to, at the beginning again of our, let's say, collaboration, I would ask, are there any points that you are not comfortable with?
Yeah.
And that's, again, maybe you don't want to, again, I don't want to start talking about somebody's family, but then realize that they've lost their son, or something happened, and they will just I don't know, they will shut down,
Yeah.
right? And that's it. So these 3 points mainly. So anything that they feel too sensitive discussing, rules of behavior during this alerts, and yeah, that would be
I
what
saw
happened.
a friend the other day posting about how many course books that are still out there still have Russia as a context.
That's true.
Have
Mm-hmm.
Russia or stories about Russians, and how difficult, or just kind of how basically students just don't want to read them, don't want to hear them, don't want to listen.
That's true. That's true. Oh, yes, thanks. I would say we've always tried to, well, since I started working for this project, it's called Buya, and we've always been trying to work mostly on Ukrainian reality, include Ukrainian cities, and I think this is what makes it stand out. But at the same time, we didn't consider the spelling. So sometimes Odessa would turn out with double S.
Yeah.
And when you say, oh yes, but that also, or Kyiv, we have to rewrite in a Ukrainian way. And some people are more radical about it, some are more vocal, and yeah, but I understand that as for general, yeah, so course books, it is indeed a touchy topic, and not a lot of people understand why Ukrainians still are so aggressive. Well, it's just culture, it has nothing to do. But again, coming back to this idea that Ukrainian artists have been, again, consistently eradicated from Earth, and seeing another artist who's been, I don't know, all over the place, and people, I know that in Great Britain, people are still enjoying Chekhov or Tchaikovsky, and well, I listen for them. There is no personal connotation,
Yeah.
right? So, and in Ukraine, for instance, again, I never even thought about it before, because again, personally, I can't say that they were involved in certain things, but that fact that the propaganda is using these names to show the great culture. It's a whole different thing. So yeah, in Ukraine, like we have, we used to have again, I think up to 2022, we have the Nutcracker every year, the Nutcracker ballet, and nobody would say anything about it. But now it's all cancelled, and we have different artists, and people are getting to know again other composers, other singers, and so on.
Oh, even now, Ukrainian writers and artists are dying and being killed. I mean, I read this recently, The Orphanage by Sergei Zadan, and I know that he's now serving in the military.
And it's been a mania about him. I'm actually quite happy that he's getting recognition as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and his books have been translated into English, and they're quite widely read among people who follow what's happening. But the fact that you've got leading writers and musicians and people, I know the guys from Boombox were serving, and all those kind of guys who are volunteering to defend their country from, you know, mobilized ethnic minorities and prisoners and mercenaries, basically. And Russia demanding respect for the great Russian culture. And yeah, I mean, I find it very, very upsetting and kind of problematic as well. You don't mind?
It's
sorry.
sorry. No, I just wanted to add that indeed it's been said that, oh well, if culture has nothing to do with the war actions, then yeah, why are so many artists, writers, sportsmen as well? We are losing them to this war, to the previous wars, to the regime that used to control Ukraine, and indeed, we understand that, for example, there was this writer Bahrani, and we understand that he would write about similar things that Solzhenitsyn would write in his Gulag, but he died before he was known because, again, of certain regime regulations, and he was even about to get a Nobel Prize for this, but since Nobel Prize is only given to people who are alive, he never got it. So, you know, and as you've mentioned, but still what irks me is that not many Ukrainian libraries are even including Ukrainian artists on the list, or only including the most famous ones like Taras Shevchenko and Slava Ukraini, but we have more than that. And again, I really would like people to get to know more, writers to get to know more about this whole, I don't know, movement, yeah, that we had in the 60s, and overall what happened. So yeah, just step a little bit outside. Yes, just don't say, oh, there's nothing there out there. No, people like Zhadan, yeah, they have to serve. You mentioned Boombox, yeah, they're the singers, and well, it really pains me when I read another piece of news that some sportsmen died, or like not died, like let's say they were killed, and you understand, like, well, there's so many talented people, and once again we're losing them, which is the saddest part.
I was going to ask you if you used to have or still have family connections or English language teaching connections with Russians.
Well, I don't have family connections, so since my whole family lives in Crimea.
Okay.
But I have a friend who, well, we used to work together. She's my ex-colleague turned friend, and we reconnected, I think, a year ago, and that was very spontaneous. We somehow found each other on Instagram, and I don't know where she's right now, but a year ago she was living in St. Petersburg, and we had quite an interesting conversation. So she would support me, and she would say that it's all horrible, and again, because we are from the same we have the same hometown, but at the same time she understands that Well, it's like you again, you understand how these things work. She says, "Oh, but that's horrible, but that's horrible, but at the same time, I don't want to be attacked by like NATO," and then you just get lost because at that time you're even Finland, yeah, was not even nowhere near applying for NATO membership, and you know what has changed, but maybe I'm confusing the dates, yeah, but still. And she also had quite a curious story, if you don't mind. Her mom lives in Italy, and like this, my friend's mom, right? And she said, um, I was talking to my mom at some point, and my mom would say, I don't want NATO knocking on my door. And I would say, Mom, you're living in a NATO country. You're living in Italy, and you've been living in Italy for many years. And this is the extent there where it goes. So it's getting ridiculous. And then at some point, she basically repeats her mom's words, and you understand, well, some kind of code. What are they breathing? But then again, coming back to what I told you, right? What she needs 24 hours day by day, not even 24 hours. This whole message, it just twists your understanding of reality.
I've learned to be very. So I still have Russians I'm connected to on social media, and I still have Russians, and I still get friend requests, and I've basically started refusing friend requests simply of people I don't know, because I've had so much crazy abusive shit from Russian teachers over the last 2 years. And often what happens is I then get messages saying, oh, but I'm different. I'm anti-regime and I'm anti-war. And then we have a conversation where I kind of say, well, that's great. I'm pleased to hear about your position. The problem is there is a war at the moment, and it's great that you believe in peace. How do you think the peace is going to happen? And that's always the most interesting question for me, because what you then get is, well, I read widely in both languages. I read in English and in Russian. And from what I can understand, we basically had to start this special military operation because of NATO. And, you know, we're really defending our borders, even though it's awful what's happening, and I don't support it at all. And, you know, I think the only way the war will end is when an agreement is reached and, you know, we get what we want from our aggression. And when I hear people talk about, you know, 20% of Russians are opposed to the war or whatever, I always think, well, how is it they think it's going to end? Because for me, I cannot see any anti-war position that isn't also a pro-Ukraine. The only way it ends is with a Russian military defeat, and anything just kicking it further down the line. You know, you could impose some enforced settlement on Ukraine that basically delays the next stage of the war for 5 years or 10 years, but all you're doing is delaying things. And for me, it seems after 2014, the one thing that became very clear now is you can't make deals and reward aggression.
Yeah,
You know,
you're quite
rewarding
right.
doesn't work. It's encouragement, basically. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
so that's kind of my I don't know, my red line now for the Russians I deal with. I want people.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I quite agree with you when you're saying, well, how it's going to end. So when you reach this question and you ask, so
Yeah.
you're anti-war, so how does it end?
You know,
Okay.
usually,
Can you repeat?
yeah, usually the answer is Ukraine does what we tell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
they don't join the EU, and then we can have peace.
Exactly. Right. So I wanted to say, it's just the connection gets tricky, yeah, at some point. But I wanted to say, yeah, well, as long as you reach this question, so where do you retreat? And they say, no, but these are now our territories. And you understand, yeah, like how is this an anti-war position?
Yeah.
And I visited Estonia last year, and they were amazing, like in their support. The like interpreted, and I helped out with certain communication, and I was approached by a few ladies, and they said, like, what can we do? And even a year ago we understood that the interest, like, was subsiding, and I take Spanish classes, and my tutor tells me there is nothing in the news, there is nothing about Ukraine. And I told it then to this Estonian girl, and I'm telling that to everybody now, that just keep on talking so that people don't forget, don't get used to this fact. We understand that, sure, yeah. So everybody just wants to go back to their comfortable life. Nobody wants to see the atrocities. Nobody wants to suffer. But we do see that every day. Somebody's, again, dad disappears or is captured, or we receive the sad news that they died. And we don't know when it's going to end. Nobody knows. So you just have to believe that it's going to happen. And when, that is the question. Not only we have to support our army, yeah, but we also have to keep on talking, keep on, I don't know, spreading the word about it. And yeah, as you've mentioned, just be vocal about it, and yeah, simple likes. So as my Spanish tutor, he's from Madrid, and he says, well, I learn more about what's going on from you rather than know from the news.
Yeah.
And I'm actually very grateful to you too, so that, like, we still have this opportunity to speak out, to reach out, to talk about how we're living. Sure, Kyiv is quite protective, it's a balance.
Yeah.
But still, it is, nobody said that it's not scary, it's not difficult. I just don't want Ukrainians to forget about the fact that the war is still going on as well.
Yeah.
Because, well, it's easy to just shut down